Okay, quick question. How much do you think the most famous logo in the world costs to design? Take a guess. Seriously. Just think of a number. $1 million? 5 million? Some massive agency with a whole floor of designers working for months? $35. $35. That's what Nike paid for the swoosh. 35 bucks. Designed in 35 minutes by a college student who almost didn't get the job. And here's the kicker. The guy who commissioned it didn't even like it. He said, and I quote, "I don't love it, but maybe it'll grow on me." That logo has since appeared on hundreds of billions of dollars worth of products. It is one of the 5 most recognized symbols on the entire planet. But the swoosh is actually just the beginning of this story, because the full story of how Nike got here is one of the wildest underdog tales of business history, and almost nobody knows the whole thing. To understand the swoosh, you have to understand the guy who built Nike, and to understand that guy, you have to go back to 1962. A young accountant named Phil Knight was just graduated from Stanford Business School, and he is obsessed with one thing: running shoes. Specifically, he has this theory, this idea he wrote about in a business school paper, that Japanese running shoes could do to American athletic footwear that Japanese cameras had done to German cameras. Completely take over the market by being better and cheaper. His professor gave him an A on the paper, then probably forgot about it. Knight didn't forget about it. Instead of getting a normal job, he gets on a plane to Japan. He has almost no money. He has no company. He has no products. He shows up at a Japanese shoe factory called Onitsuka Tiger and introduces himself as a representative of a company called Blue Ribbon Sports. That company did not exist. He made it up on the spot. They bought it. They gave him a deal to distribute their shoes in America. Knight flew home, put the shoes in the trunk of his car, and started selling them at track meets out of that trunk. First year revenue, $8,000. He was also working full-time as an accountant and part-time teaching accounting at Portland State University. This is not the origin story of someone who knew they were going to change the world. This is a guy with a side hustle and a very specific dream. Here's where it gets really interesting. Knight's old track coach from the University of Oregon was a man named Bill Bowerman, and Bowerman was obsessed with one thing: making his athletes faster, and he believed the key was in the shoe. He used to take shoes apart, literally take apart his athlete's shoes, modify them, rebuild them, and hand them back. He was constantly experimenting. The shoe companies thought he was a nuance. He was always sending them letters with suggestions they ignored. Knight brought Bowerman in as a co-founder, 50-50 split. And then, one morning, Easter Sunday, 1971, Bowerman is sitting at the breakfast table. His wife is making waffles. He looks at the waffle iron. He looks at the sole of the running shoe. He looks back at the waffle iron. He pours liquid urethane into the waffle iron. His wife was not thrilled about the waffle iron, but what came out of it was the waffle sole, a revolutionary running shoe bottom that was lighter and grippier than anything on the market. It became the foundation of Nike's first iconic shoe. The waffle iron is still on display at the University of Oregon today. Now it's 1971. Blue Ribbon Sports is about to break away from Onitsuka Tiger and launch their own shoe brand. They need a name. They need a logo. They need it fast. One of Knight's employees suggests the name Nike, the Greek goddess of victory. Knight didn't love it, but they were out of time. Nike it was. For the logo, Knight reached out to a graphic design student at Portland State named Carolyn Davidson. She was a student he knew from his accounting class. She needed extra money. He offered her $2 an hour to come up with some logo concepts. She came back with a handful of options. Knight and his team looked through them. Nobody loved any of them, but they were launching in weeks and they needed something. They picked the swoosh. Knight's exact words when he chose it, and this is documented, were, "I don't love it, but I think it'll grow on me." Carolyn Davidson sent an invoice for 17 and a half hours of work at $2 an hour. Total bill, $35. Nike paid it. She went back to being a student. Life moved on. For a few years at least. Because here's the part of this story most people have never heard. In 1983, 12 years after Carolyn Davidson drew the swoosh for $35, Nike threw her a party. By this point, Nike was worth hundreds of millions of dollars. The swoosh was on everything. It was one of the most recognizable symbols in American sports. At the party, Phil Knight personally handed her a golden swoosh ring with a diamond in it and an envelope. Inside the envelope was a certificate for a significant block of Nike stock. Nike has never officially disclosed how much stock, but given Nike's growth from 1983 onward and the stock splits the company went through, the value of that gift has been estimated to be worth several $100,000 at minimum, possibly significantly more. She still has it, she's never sold it. Carolyn Davidson went on to do freelance work for Nike for years afterward. She has said in interviews that she has no regrets about the original $35 payment. She was a student, it was fair for the time, and she had no idea what it would become. And Phil Knight, the guy who said he didn't believe in the logo, he wore a swoosh ring himself for decades. The one he had made alongside hers. The logo he almost didn't pick. For a brand name he almost didn't choose, designed by a student he paid $35, became the symbol of the most valuable sportswear company on earth. Here's what this story is really about. It's not about logos. It's not even really about Nike. It's about how many of the things that shape our entire world, the symbols, the ideas, the inventions, started as something someone wasn't even sure about. Phil Knight didn't love the swoosh. The name Nike was a last resort. The waffle sole came from a ruined breakfast. Blue Ribbon Sports was a fake company name invented on the spot in a Japanese factory. None of it was supposed to work. All of it worked. There's a version of this story where Knight picks a different logo, where Davidson doesn't need beer money that semester, where Bowerman's wife hides the waffle iron, and Nike as we know it simply doesn't exist. The difference between the world we live in and that alternate version was a series of small, accidental, unimpressive decisions that nobody thought were a big deal at the time. So the next time you're doing something small, something that feels insignificant, undervalued, and maybe a little accidental, just remember, somebody designed the most famous logo in the world in 35 minutes for $35. And the guy who commissioned it wasn't even sure he liked it. If you want more stories about accidental greatness, subscribe. We've got a whole library of them coming soon.